up on the Social Hour, iTunes gets more social, business cards get more social, the Webby Awards are getting more social, everybody's getting more social. Plus, how to hide your Facebook email address is actually something you're going to want to do. And is Twitter over-designing? All that and just saying on the Social Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 78, recorded Friday, September 21st, 2012. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Social Hour. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Social Hour from TWiT World Headquarters in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Amber. You know, normally I'd say, how's the weather in Toronto? We exchange pleasantries, and it's all very social and friendly. But today is a little bit different. We're going to start off the show with something we don't get to do very often, and that is a straight-up Leo Laporte unboxing. Welcome, Leo.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Amber. My two favorite people. It's so nice to see you.
But I'm a little bit more favorite, right?
Well, you're there. That's not fair.
The reason he can't say yes is because it's not true.
No, I love
Amber's
you both
everybody's
equally.
favorite.
You're both my children.
Well, you usually have Fridays off, so you're not able to be part of the Social Hour. I know, but does everyone else know? What is that? What's happening?
Well, this is iPhone Day, right?
Yeah, it is.
We ordered the iPhones a week ago. And everybody who was able to get on the Apple Store within the first hour, between midnight and 1 a.m., was able to order.
And get it delivered today.
And get it delivered today.
Mine is on back order 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm lucky.
Now, the funny thing is, both you and Amber have actually handled this ahead of normal people.
That's true.
Because MG has one for
review unit, yes.
And Amber, you got one early. In fact, Amber just told us she's done 22 television interviews already today about the iPhone.
That's insane, Amber. How are you still standing? Well, I guess you're not standing. How are you still alive?
I'm not going to lie. I slept for 2 hours, so I have makeup done, hair done, but I am wearing sweatpants because I came home and it's been a very long day. But it's been fun. You know, you just kind of go along with it. A lot of people are so excited about getting the iPhone. So it was an early morning, huge lineups here in Toronto, about at least a few hundred people waiting to get the iPhone 5. Super excited about it.
How do they do the 22 television interviews? Do you have satellite? What is it? How do they come to you?
Yeah, so there's a live truck. We did a couple different ways. I went back to the studio for some of them, did some in the Eaton Center. They had almost this really interesting box that they're using now. I don't really know what the Digio, I think it's called. So did some hits from the Eaton Center with that. We did run into tech problems, as I'm sure you can imagine, getting into the Eaton Center and getting a good signal. But it was kind of back-to-back with probably, I guess, 4 or 5 different networks within CTV.
And the Eaton Center is where the Apple Store is in Toronto.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you were out there with the line.
Yeah, I was out there with the line.
Was it crazy?
It wasn't. I feel as though the lines used to be a little more crazy. People were very calm, and I was trying to say to someone this morning that I think it's because people have matured a little bit. You know, they're getting more comfortable, and they're getting older, and they're not so much. There's not so much hysteria as there used to be. But the first person arrived there Wednesday night at 11 p.m. and has been camping out since then. So I think that's kind of crazy.
Well, the other side of that is also this is the 6th iPhone. It's not like it's something brand new, and unlike early days of iPhone, you could do what we did, which is order online.
Yeah.
And if you did it soon enough, I got this from Verizon by 8 a.m. They still had a couple left. They didn't have the big ones left, the 64 gig. So I got a 32 gig. So, but anyway, so it's FedExed from Fort Worth, Texas. I guess it's from Verizon, not from Apple. I thought it would say Apple on the box.
Well, it'll say Apple on the important box.
Oh, yeah. No, see, this is interesting. So because I ordered it from Verizon, We've got Verizon stuff in here.
Oh,
right?
what
Getting started.
A neat manual.
The SIM card, because I ordered a SIM card so I could use this internationally.
Oh, that's smart.
Verizon, traditionally is not a world phone, but these Apple iPhones are from Verizon. But you have to tell them, and they'll give you a SIM card.
Yeah, or you buy one overseas.
I like this, and they're doing this. A lot of the companies are doing this. This is donate your old wireless phone to Hopeline, and they will give your old phone to domestic violence victims. So that they have a phone.
Smart.
So it's it's a good way to recycle.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, recycle your old phones and batteries.
Gosh.
And either they give the phones to these people or they sell them and they give the money to them. I'm not sure.
Sure.
But anyway.
Well,
I will
either
do
way,
that.
It's
I have
good
some
cause.
phones.
Yeah, me too.
And then here we are. Here's the box.
Okay.
You've seen the box. You've both seen the box. I'm not showing you anything you haven't seen.
Don't think about us. Think about everyone else.
All right, there it is. Now, I ordered black.
You ordered black. Now, are you going to be
32 gigs. You
are
got a tight shot of that, right? Where is it? Over here? Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Are you worried about some of the reports that the back is really, really fragile and could get scratched?
That's why I brought an X-Acto knife. Seriously.
Oh, boy.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we do. I don't order these phones because I want to. I'm very happy with my Galaxy S3, although I would probably want this phone. But also so we can review them, so we can report back to you.
Yeah.
And better that my phone gets scratched than yours does, right? So there's the plastic. One thing Apple and they talk about this in the Walter Isaacson biography that Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs spent a lot of time on packaging. Because they said that's your first experience of the new device. So all of Apple's packaging is kind of airtight boxes. There's
it's all about your first impression.
It is, and what you'll see when I
the
open
phone
it.
by its box.
See if I can hold the mic with one hand.
Yeah,
that's
good work.
Don't show this. That's it. Much better.
Think about the packaging,
I'm very
Alex.
poised. What you'll see, first impression. Leo looks like a dork. What you'll see when you open it is that the phone will be there saying hello. And they do that with the computers now and everything, so that your first experience is of the phone directly.
Hey, look at the phone.
And it is a little longer, isn't it? It looks kind of strangely stretched.
It does. It's long phone is long.
You said it's kind of like long cat.
Yeah,
One
it
thing
is.
you notice immediately, curved. They call these the bezeled, and they are polished. Piano black bezels all the way around. Bevels or bezel? Bevel?
Now, you've got a little protective coating on that back right now.
Let me take the plastic back off.
Because it's actually quite black without that. And this is the area that people are saying is...
Well, it's just paint, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, an iPhone is fragile because glass is fragile also. Doesn't it feel like something's missing?
Yeah.
Because it's
feels
so
a little
light.
Light.
It feels, and I think others reported this as well, feels well made, feels like a Swiss watch. The fit and finish are very good. And things like the beveling here do make a difference. They also, some people said the bevel also scratches a little bit.
Well, because
there's the SIM card slot, on-off button, and yes, on the bottom, the new 9-pin connector and the relocated headphone switch. Let's look at what else is in the package before I turn that on. Actually, you know what? I'll turn it on. All right, we'll compare it just so. Wait a minute, they're both the same size. That's the white one. Nicole's already got hers.
It's upside down. So I ordered the white one, and I am already happy with my decision.
Really?
Yeah, I just like it. It pops. I find
it
in a deep dark purse more easily as well, and that's important to me.
And I should point out that this is not painted. That is the raw material. So if there is scratching on the back, it won't happen. Here, let me just.
It's kind of like when you scratch your nonstick pan, right? Sometimes you go, how did that happen? But once it's scratched, it's scratched.
It will always be scratched. So while that's booting up, let me just show you what else is in here. It's very much like the old iPhone box. We've got, of course, the power supply, the new cable, and the new headphones.
Which
you
I
still
love.
Like those? I got a little sample of yours, and I really liked it.
Yeah, some people say, they still don't fit my ears that well. Well, I had terrible issues with the original earbuds. They actually hurt my ears. They were painful to use. These do not hurt at all, so I'm very happy with them, and I think the sound is better.
Here's the connector. Actually, that's a little smaller than I expected. It's a very refined connector. And what I do, admittedly, I wish they'd use something more standard, but I love it that it goes in
either way.
And boy, it's
which micro USB wouldn't do.
Yeah, it's a good solid fit too. It's not going to pull out easily. It has a nice click on it. All right, let's turn this back on and swipe.
Swipe again.
It's in Selamat Datang.
You want English?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I do, because Dvorak once put it in Greek, and it was really challenging.
Yeah, that's hard
Comes
to...
about, as
hard to
Apple has
read.
always done with its phones, comes with a pretty good charge, certainly enough for you to play with it a little bit. I'm going to log in, so you might want to hide this unless we want everybody to know our password.
And while you're logging in, the phone being long but not wider, to me, it's something I'm going to have to get used to. I almost feel like I'm in a little bit of a bizarro world.
It looks like it also doesn't add to the size of the keyboard particularly, because it's vertical height,
Right.
not horizontal height.
It's designed to give you more screen real estate on something like your email list or a website.
And this was the point that Apple made. You still can use a single thumb, one-handed operation for the screen, and that was kind of their whole point. We're going to enable location services. Apple is one of the few. I think one of the things that Apple does well is it lets you know all the time when it's doing things like following you around. I'm going to set it up as a new phone this time. Now I have to sign in with my Apple ID, so you're going to have to hide it again. Hide it
This
again.
is
I think it was, when I picked it up, I was so surprised how light it was. Like you mentioned, that was a big shock to me. I mean, I knew it was 20% lighter, but I think just the feeling of it doesn't feel as substantial as some of the other phones I have. But I feel like I'm going to lose it, to be honest with you.
Maybe because everybody told me that, it doesn't feel light to me.
It doesn't?
No.
What you have to do is pick up a 4S. Because between the
compare
two,
them. Yeah.
after just a couple of minutes with the iPhone 5, the 4S is like short and fat and weighs a lot.
Like me.
Well, it's the Leo of iPhones.
It's the Leo of iPhones.
Yes.
Oh.
He started
I'm
it.
gonna agree.
Come on.
Sarah, I'm going to be his favorite again if you keep this up.
Oh, you already are. Trust
I will
me.
compare it, though, to my current phone of choice, which is the Samsung Galaxy S3, and it's much bigger.
Right,
And
yeah,
let's
it
see,
is.
Does it seem thinner and lighter? It's about the same weight.
The
And
S3
iPhone
is
slightly
very light.
thinner, but because of the tapered form of the S3, it might appear to be a little bit thinner. Apple claims this is the thinnest phone on the market. I think there are actually thinner phones, but it is pretty thin, I have to say. I'm going to use iCloud, right? Why not?
No, iCloud's part of the fun,
Why
right?
not? Let's use
Back it up.
But you could see the difference in screen size. Apple opted not to get a giant. Definitely use Find My iPhone. A giant screen. This is a 4.8-inch screen. So even with the 4-inch screen that Apple's using, it's still not quite.
You know, it's funny when you look at you look at this image. You got the iPhone 5 next to what's arguably the best Android phone on the market right now,
Yeah.
and I just
Look at the
totally
size.
gravitate towards the iPhone because I'm like, oh, that's
You
the
like
operating
tiny.
system that I know and love, right? And I look at the Samsung phone and I'm like, everything's all over the place, But I know that that's just not how everybody feels. It's really just a personal preference. Which is really how I wish everyone would feel, so people stopped fighting with each other about their smartphone
It really
choices.
has become personal preference. I think that's the bottom line on all of this is that we now have some really good phones to choose from on almost every carrier. Well, every carrier: Sprint, T-Mobile,
Sure.
Verizon, and
Yeah.
AT&T. So you choose the carrier that works best in your neighborhood, and then choose the phone that you like. It's just like the old Mac versus Windows debate now. I think that they're very similar in a lot of ways, and there's pros and cons on both. I do love. I mean, I think this feels like a fine Swiss watch, like it's something very well made.
Well, and Apple would love for you to say that. I mean, they do that on purpose.
Yeah.
That's half of the battle, right? Is to be the phone that feels the nicest.
You know what makes me sad, though, is that most people will put cases on it, and then it will be no less clunky and ugly than any other phone on the market. So if you're going to wear a case, then it probably doesn't matter. But if you're willing to take a chance and carry it naked.
I've always gone bareback with my phones. Commando, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's fine. You know, you run the risk
Depends on how,
of dropping and scratching, but that's you live life on the edge, right?
Once you have a 3-year-old in the house, then I think that all changes because I know anytime Connor gets near my phones, they all have to have like big, thick cases on them because kids play with the iPhones all the time and they tend to throw them if they're having a fit or just don't if they don't work properly. So good case is a necessity.
It's a good screen, I have to say. And the Verizon LTE is still very fast in Petaluma, but now that everybody has one,
We'll see.
we'll see.
In 1 month, write down your speeds now. And
I
then
did. I tested it.
Test it.
Before the iPhone came out.
In 1 month, when pretty much everybody who wants the phone right away will be able to have it.
Right. It's not. I feel like it's very nice, very beautiful. Should I try scratching it?
No, don't do that.
That hurts.
But here's the thing. Like, go ahead and do that, but that's user error.
Oh, my gosh.
No, it's not that easy to scratch.
Okay, good.
No, it's not.
Good.
I mean, that was a sharp X-Acto knife.
Sort of scared me.
I didn't press hard, but I was scraping across it in a way that might accidentally happen, and no damage at all.
Sure. Just a little smudgy, but that's just to be expected with anything that's matte.
I got sweaty palms. I'm nervous talking to you, beautiful girls.
Well, it's understood.
And I already got my first iMessage from a viewer who saw my messages.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Nice.
It says, "Looking good, Leah."
Oh, thanks, 609, whatever. Wherever you're
boy,
from.
Leah.
What's
Heard
the
about his fair play.
What's the 609
Is
area
that San
code?
Diego?
No,
Anyway,
that's
I won't.
619.
This is your show. I thought we should do an unboxing since today's iPhone arrival
No, this
day.
is a real treat.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great
this
to
is so
see you
much
both.
fun.
Yeah. I miss you,
Good to
Amber.
see you, too.
right.
I miss you, too, but I will be out there in November.
That'll be fun. We'll do some special
It's happening because I'm doing an event out there, so I have to
Just
come.
out of curiosity, do you know what days?
Yeah.
I do, actually. It's a Fast Company event that I will be at, and it's Thursday, November 7th, maybe?
Are you going to be in town?
I'll be in Australia.
No! Really?
Yeah.
He's
So have
out
fun
most
with
of
Sarah.
He's out most of November, but that's okay. We're going to have so
That's
much
okay.
more fun without Leo,
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll
mucking
leave
it
you
up.
chocolate in your office, Leo. How about that?
Deal. Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks,
Have
Leo.
fun.
Thanks, Leo.
All right.
Have a good Friday.
It was-
Enjoy the
it
rest
was-
of your day off.
It was New Jersey that called. It was Snooki. Thanks, Snooki.
Thanks, Snooks.
Oh,
Enjoy your new baby. Okay, that's enough, Leo. That's enough.
Oh, my gosh.
You don't want to just... Everyone's still really happy with this whole thing.
Where do we go from there, Sarah? Where do we go?
Right? How can you top that? Okay, what are we doing? No, I'm just kidding. We actually have a lot of actual social stories, as we always do on Fridays. We love how the social hour has moved to Fridays, when we shoot the show live, of course. For anybody who's been watching for a while knows, we used to shoot the show on Mondays. And Friday just seems like a better fit. So let's start off with a story you pulled, Amber. Facebook testing automatic upload sync on the Android OS, and you're not that crazy about it, are you?
I don't love this idea. I mean, sometimes I think when I'm taking pictures on my phone, I wish that they were backed up automatically. However, the idea of them getting backed up to a place on Facebook, even if it's a private place on Facebook that isn't shared with the public, it just makes me uncomfortable. Maybe this goes back a little bit to my feelings about Facebook and sometimes not trusting what they're doing with our information. But I don't love this. I see the necessity for something like this, but I think with Facebook involved, it makes me just a little bit uncomfortable. What about you?
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not crazy about automatic anything. I mean, I don't want to say that because there are certain things that I do sync automatically. But yes, when it comes to Facebook, I think that we're also used to the privacy issues that have sort of plagued the Facebook user experience for years now. And you think, well, wait a second. Facebook is testing this whole thing, and it's supposed to be, I don't know, a more seamless experience for everybody. But that's never why Facebook does anything. Facebook does things so that they can capture more data from its user base. And I accept that. I mean, as long as I'm using Facebook, I know that that's going to be the case. But I know what you mean about saying, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, and also I think of all the photos that I take, and the reality is if I look at the quality of those photos, I probably only ever want to keep maybe 1 in 10 of those pictures. I mean, very often I'm taking a photo and, 3 or 4 of them just aren't that great. So I don't need those backed up instantly. So I think that's another reason I'm not a huge fan of it. But I don't know. I'm sure some people will like this feature, but like I said, I'm not in love with it yet.
The automatic sync stuff. It's like that's the sort of thing where I go, ooh, automatic sync. That's the sort of stuff that gets people in trouble. You know, like my pictures being synced to my Google Plus account, for example. I don't like that either. Hey, so in other Facebook news, story, at least the story that I read came from Mashable, that Google will overtake Facebook in at least U.S. display ad revenue this year. So Facebook had the crown. not going to be the case a year from now.
Yeah, so they lost the crown, according to research firm eMarketer. Google has projected to possibly generate $2.31 billion in net display ad revenue in 2012, a massive amount of money. Compare this against Facebook, which is projected to take home about $2.16 billion. Not, I guess, a huge difference as far as the amounts, but it's interesting to see Google take the lead here. Obviously, Facebook had to go through a lot of changes this year, and advertising revenue perhaps not as great as they would anticipate it would be. But I don't think it's a surprise to see Google take the lead on this one.
Yeah, especially if you think about all of the ads that they're running on YouTube, for example. Obviously, YouTube, a huge Google property with a lot of ad revenue there, mobile ads as well. Facebook's ad revenue, there were some projections. I think we talked about it on the Social Hour last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago. Some analysts said, yeah, you know, we thought that Facebook was going to bring in this particular number, and now we're gonna downgrade that number a little bit because they're still working it out, their strategy, monetizing on mobile, for example. Facebook earlier this week rolled out, what do they call it? It's they're basically making their own mobile ad network, which is going to be a layer upon other ad exchanges that already exist. So basically, in short, the short version is I, as a Facebook user, have shared a lot of interesting facts about myself with Facebook. So Facebook can use that information on an ad exchange to then use my data to serve me up a very relevant ad somewhere else. On an app, for example, that I used my Facebook ID to log into. Now, you know, that's you're either gonna say, oh my gosh, that's the most horrible thing ever. I don't want my information to be peppered all over the internet, but this is anonymous. So it's not as if it's saying, hey, third party, Sarah Lane likes cats. You should only, you know, market cat litter ads to her when she's somewhere else. It's just this person who's in this demographic, maybe this age, and likes this movie, also likes these other things. So it's more targeted advertising. So it'll be interesting to see if Google remains on top, if this turns out to be a really good strategy for Facebook display ads down the road, because these really just are display ads. I mean, these are the sorts of ads that some people say, I never pay any attention to that stuff. And this is still what's making companies, and particularly these two ad giants, a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. For our next story, iOS App Store gets a refresh. They are showcasing social apps. I think this is a cool move, especially for the Social Hour.
I do too, yeah. So anybody who's upgraded to iOS 6 on iOS 6, yes, on iOS, there's a new iTunes. Now, there's going to be a new iTunes that's rolling out just across the Apple ecosystem, and that's not rolling out to Macs until October, and Windows machines as well. But the iOS version of iTunes and the App Store already looks really different. We talked about it a little bit on iPad today, but what I thought was kind of cool is if you're just going ahead and you're looking through the store, and you're just trying to get an idea of what your options are, and you're looking at a variety of, okay, we've got Editor's Choice, Game Collections, iTunes Festival, okay, new and noteworthy, and you think, well, you know, I'm kind of actually looking for something that's more on the social side, and you click on all categories here. Whoops, is it more? Yeah, so in the more category, now you have all of these categories that are really drilled down. And this is stuff that you could find on iTunes before, but it just wasn't displayed in this nice, I don't know, kind of visual way. And we get down to social networking. It's right between reference and sports, where it should be. Then when you click on that, you get a variety of apps that might appeal to you. Stuff that's new, stuff that's hot, stuff that you have to pay for, stuff that's free. I recognize some of these apps, but certainly not all of them. Some of them are also games, and you think, well, games, social networking, but, you know, maybe there's an option to connect via Game Center, so there's certainly a social element when you want to play games with others. It's funny, I was just on fab.com last night doing a little online shopping, which is actually kind of a little social side note, is that Fab used to be closed. Now it's actually a completely open network for anybody who wants to use it. It's a pretty good site. And then, of course, you've got your handy-dandy links to share socially. So anything that, if I say, gosh, Fab is just, what an amazing app. I really like their app update. Then I have some nice, easy links to share with people. Of course, Twitter and Facebook is now baked into iOS 6, so you're going to see a lot of those. Certainly not the only two places that you want to share stuff, but I don't know. Leo was a little lukewarm on the whole App Store refresh when we went over it yesterday, Amber. But I'm liking it. I think it looks clean and just kind of a little modernized.
Yeah, I think it looks good. And I also think the social networking category makes a lot of sense. I mean, more and more apps that I'm seeing are obviously in the social space, and it's nice to have one dedicated category for them. Speaking of social categories, Sarah, just when you thought that they couldn't possibly add more categories to the Webby Awards, we've talked about this before on the show because there are so many different categories that are entered into this award show for all of the best of the web. They have added some social categories, and in fact, some interesting judges like Tumblr's David Karp, Robert Scoble, and Ariana Huffington. As for some of the social focus categories, based on this article, they have the celebrity and fan category, education and discovery, public service and activism, and it goes on and on. The Webby Awards has just almost bloated, I think, over the past few years as far as the different categories and places where you can be judged. I think, again, social does make sense, but I wonder, when will they stop?
I don't know. I guess I really like the social categories because, of course, this is the kind of stuff that we think about all the time. So it's nice to see people getting recognized in areas of the internet that a lot of people are putting a lot of effort and time into. But I think we get to a point where it's the Webby Awards, right? So it's stuff that, I guess in my mind, I still think if it's an award that you get if you get a Webby, it's something that you can do on the internet that isn't possible somewhere else, or is somehow more special or unique because it's on the web. And as we go forward, I know those lines just get more and more blurred, where somebody could do something that's, social outreach, and you used a web tool, and all of a sudden that's an award that you might win in social. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic about the Webbies expanding into the social category as well.
Well, if you do want to enter, it looks like the entry deadline is October 26th. So if you have a good social site or service, that's when you need to let them know.
Absolutely.
And Sarah, this is kind of interesting. Business card upstart Moo.com, which I'm sure you've been familiar with for a while now, buys Flavors.me to expand its digital profile. I'm reading the TechCrunch article, still trying to figure out how this makes sense for Moo. What do you think?
Yeah, so Moo, if you're not familiar with Moo.com, a lot of people actually have used it to print out business cards. They came on the scene, oh gosh, I guess I probably learned about them back in 2007 or so. They've been around for a long time. And they provide some other services too, but the business cards are probably their most well-known. And they provide a variety of templates, and they've kind of got a geeky following. So they've been a real favorite in kind of the internet startup world, especially for startups where you think like, well, we got to get a bunch of cards made, and we want something that looks nice, but we're not going to go like crazy letterpress type of a thing. What are our options? So a lot of people have gone to Moo to buy Flavors.me, which I have a Flavors.me personal site set up. You can think of it as, I guess, a competitor to About.me. About.me was purchased by AOL at least a year ago, maybe more now. At the time, it gets away from me. But so Moo, okay, so you say, all right, well, why did Moo buy a personal, almost like landing page service for the internet? And I think it makes a lot of sense, because if I want to use Moo to print business cards, for example, so that when I meet Amber at a social networking conference, I give her something that describes me and has all my contact information. It just makes sense that then I can say, one of my little lines on my Moo card can point back to my Flavors.me profile, where all of my dynamic information online and sites that I'm updating regularly also live. So Moo can be more of like an identity company rather than just a place that seems a service that is providing analog tools. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does make sense. And one thing I think about as well is that people are so often changing jobs these days. People aren't necessarily just doing one job. They don't just have one occupation. So imagining that they have some type of digital profile on this service and they want to update their business cards on a more regular basis. Like I almost see Moo cards. I don't want to say as though they're disposable, but I feel as though I wonder if that maybe maybe that's going to be a trend in the future, is you print up around business cards, maybe just to go to a conference, right? Because that's kind of the gig that you're doing at that time, and you keep your digital profile in check and all your information, like you mentioned, kind of dynamic and updated there. So maybe that's another way that it works together. Not sure, but that would make some sense to me.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people still, I think of that scene in American Psycho. Any of you who have seen the movie know which one I'm talking about, where they're all comparing business cards, and one is very upset because there was like a perfect shade of, eggshell on someone else's business card, and he was jealous of that. But I don't like business cards. I have some for TWiT. They're very cute. They have all of my correct information, and I never take them anywhere. It's not because when someone asks me for a business card, I want to say, I don't believe in business cards. It's more than just that I forget, they're bulky. When people give me theirs, I kind of want to say, you could just email me, or if you have Bump, you could bump me your information, phone to phone, via the app. I just feel like it's almost like having printed out resumes. I know it still happens. Whatever. But I just use LinkedIn because I prefer just to have everything online. So I think Moo, you're right, is probably thinking ahead a little bit and saying, if we're going to have the digital business card, and Flavors.me is a great service, hasn't been bought up by anybody else yet, so good timing.
It makes sense. Yeah, I love services out there. I think we talked about Card Munch before on the show, where you could scan a business card and link up to that person automatically on LinkedIn. Because like you, as much as I carry around business cards, I kind of hate the process of handing out the cards. And when I get cards from other people, I always lose them. So it just doesn't seem to be that effective as far as connecting. But I know people still rely on them. And I often go to events and people say, hey, do you have a card? And I've started sometimes just to email the person on the spot. Say, give me your email. I'll just email you right here. And we don't have to worry about exchanging cards. But some people still like paper.
Yeah, you know what also is the problem, and I'll just say this and then we'll stop talking about business cards, but I'll have a great conversation with somebody, and yeah, it's usually at a conference where you end up having a conversation with a lot of people, and they'll say, here's my card, and you go, awesome, great, yes, I will get a hold of you. And my memory ain't so good, so 10 days later when I'm finally going through everything, I kind of forget who's who. And sometimes the business card is very descriptive, and I go, oh, of course, yes, I remember Tom. And sometimes it's not. So that's why the online version is just, I don't know.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, it kind of keeps everything backed up a little bit more. So we can't get away from our Facebook news this week, although this is sort of a different, almost more of a dramatic social network, the movie type spin on the history of Facebook. And so I read an article on Business Insider a couple of days ago about alleged IMs from Mark Zuckerberg, between Mark Zuckerberg and who was technically one of his first co-founders, Aaron Greenspan, way back in their Harvard days when they made the Facebook, that Greenspan had uncovered sort of by accident in a zipped file that contained a bunch of other things, and it's sort of a long story, but these were IMs that apparently had been saved, and Greenspan had been looking for a long time and just couldn't figure out where he had saved them. Finally found them. And you figure like, that seems a little suspect. But this is a guy who has already, been trying to... He's already taken Zuckerberg to court to try to prove that Zuckerberg stole his original idea and wasn't forthright with the work that he was actually doing for his own version of the Facebook. So you think, well, if he had these IMs in his back pocket, he probably would have carted them out before now. But he had gone public in a blog post on his personal site, which was it's a very interesting sort of a background. Like, here's everything that happened. Here's the story. Here's more evidence via these IM conversations that we had that Mark was taking the idea that I had already started and kind of telling me that he was going to build something else and wanted me to work on the something else, but it's pretty much because he wanted me to stop working on what he considered to be a competitor that already existed, and it's very fascinating. But one of the things that this Business Insider article had kind of drilled down on is from the IMs themselves, where he says, yeah, Facebook is just a souped up version of someone else's idea. Now, of course, Greenspan says, yeah, it was my idea. It was the version of the Facebook that I was working on at Harvard that he knew about. So he was sort of saying, well, it's sort of like a souped-up version of your thing, but it'll be for a different demo. So maybe you can work with me on that. And you know, I just don't want us to have to compete with each other. The whole thing is it really goes back to so many people who have said, hey, this guy, you know, is wildly successful. I mean, in an amazing way, and we got screwed. And of course, you can think about The Social Network as the plot line of what actually happened. And Greenspan says, I think when you read these IMs, it shows you just how much it isn't like that movie, how that movie was truly pure fiction, and that, you know, he was not motivated by, you know, a girlfriend or trying to get into clubs or anything like that. It was competing with me.
It's really interesting to read the IM conversation. I have to say, just while we're talking, I've been diving into the conversation on Business Insider, and it's just fun to see the back and forth and see Zuckerberg kind of, you know, being a little wishy-washy about what he's doing, where he wants to compete, talking about it not being so much of a professional site, but more of a place where people could go and hang out, maybe even procrastinate in the language that he uses there. And it goes on and on. It's very long, but I would urge people to just take a read through it. It's just kind of fun to read the early days of what Mark Zuckerberg was thinking as he was building what's now the #1 social network in the world.
Yeah, you really feel like you're reading something you're not supposed to be reading, because, you know,
it feels kind of wrong.
Yeah, and IM conversations, I mean, now I guess we're all just sort of like, yeah, you don't say anything ever that you might want someone to read later. But certainly, even a few years ago, it was a little bit more of a, you know, this is a private conversation between two parties. You certainly don't think it's going to be published later. But it's very natural language. I mean, you read this stuff and you're like, yeah, it sounds like what somebody might say, right, when they were trying to convince the other person that nothing bad was going to happen. So it's definitely worth a read. And I don't have an opinion about what actually went down. You know, it sounds like in many of these cases, there are a lot of sour grapes from people who felt like they had put time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into a project and then got shut out of it. And I don't blame them if that's indeed what happened. But it is just one side of the story from somebody who has been fighting Zuckerberg rather publicly for a number of years now. So take that how you will. Hey, so some of you might be joining us for the first time live because we had our special Leo iPhone unboxing. Not something that we get very often on the Social Hour, unboxings. So quick reminder that we do record the show on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. For all you live viewers, it's right after This Week in Law with Denise Howell. But if you don't watch us live, that's fine. You don't have to miss anything because we offer up all of our shows here at TWiT On Demand. Our show, The Social Hour, is at twit.tv/TSH. So there, we're on our 78th episode now. You've got 77 others to catch up on. If you've come to us a little late in the game, they're all very good. Sometimes we have guests. Sometimes it's just Amber and me when we feel like we've got enough meat of stories to just fill up the show that way. You can subscribe to the show, obviously completely free. Subscription is just sort of a way to not have to remember when a new episode comes out. It'll just be downloaded to your podcatcher of choice automatically. And if you want to email us with questions or comments or feedback or story ideas or anything like that, you can always do so at thesocialhour@twit.tv. Operators are standing by. All right, so we've got social tips, we've got spotlights, we've got viewer feedback, but first we want to take and thank. That's what I do sometimes. Take a moment to thank Audible for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Amber, you and I are intimately familiar with how great audiobooks can be when you are busy, when you are on the move, and you don't have a lot of time or energy or inclination to sit down and read a lot of books, but you don't want to be the kind of person who never reads. Audible is great for this. They have over 100,000 titles. We've got fiction and nonfiction, even some periodicals are thrown in there. I mean, really, your choices are almost endless. I've never actually searched for a book on Audible that I really wanted to read, in audio form and not found it. Audible also breaks down stuff into great categories. So if you go to audiblepodcast.com/social hour, I'll tell you why that URL is really important in a minute. You can just browse through the audiobooks and you get a good idea of all the audiobooks that you have to choose from. Alex, if you just want to click on the browse audiobooks, people can kind of see how Audible will categorize everything. So you've got your bestsellers on Audible, you've got your bestsellers on the New York Times, for example. Maybe you read about something in the newspaper and you go, that sounds really great. So you've got a lot of choices there. Some of the authors read their own books, which is really cool. Sometimes they're read by multiple people, so you really almost get like almost a theatrical production type of a thing. And audiobooks are great. I know for me, I spend a lot of time in my car. I get really, really bored. So why don't I actually use that time to read a book, have a book read to me of something that all my friends are talking about? Maybe you're in a book club and you think, why am I in a book club? I'll never get through it. I actually have that problem. I can't do it without Audible. And you can listen to Audible books on all of your devices, your iOS devices, your iPad, your iPhone, variety of Android devices, sure, on your computer. I mean, they make it as easy as possible. So that's what's so great about Audible. And what's also great, that URL again, audiblepodcast.com/social hour, is you sign up for Audible and you figure out, okay, well, let's give it a try. I don't know, is this going to be right for me? It's free for 30 days. So you just sign up for a free trial. And at the end of those 30 days, you get a free audiobook. And you can cancel at any time. So there's no like, oh, no, there's a year commitment, and now I wish I had never done this. Nothing like that. This is Audible. It is easy to just try out an audiobook of your choice, see if you like it, and get that book for free. I mean, who doesn't want free things, right? And if you've already done this, you can tell a friend. Tell a friend and they get a free audiobook, and they might be hooked. Audiobooks might be their future as well. And we thank Audible so much for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. All right.
So the social tip, I'm really interested in this, Sarah, because I know you found the social tip this week, and I have not heard about this, actually. How to undo Facebook hiding your email address before your friends use iOS 6 contact sync. I don't know a lot about this.
Yeah, so this is this tricky thing that Facebook did a while ago that really ticked off some folks, where all of a sudden, without really letting people know, I mean, Facebook says they let people know, but they were really sneaky about it. They changed your contact information, your email contact information, to your Facebook email address. Now, we all have those. Like, I'm Sarah Lane at Facebook.com, for example. I don't ever share that. It's not on any business card of mine. It's something that I just don't use. I know it's there, and that's fine and good, but it's like, where would I even check that? I don't know. And what they had done is they had changed that so that, let's say, Amber, you and I became Facebook friends, and you wanted to email me, and you looked at my contact information, and you saw my SarahLane at Facebook.com email, and you went, okay, cool. I'll just go ahead and email her this way. And by the way, that would be, on my About page. You click into that, you see some of my work in education, and here's my contact info. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. So this is how I would get a hold of you. Now, right now it says Sarah at SarahLane.com, because I have hidden my Facebook.com email. Now, by default, what Facebook did, and this is some time ago, is they hid my Sarah at SarahLane.com email by default, and they showed my Sarah Lane at Facebook.com. Why is that a problem? Well, because your Facebook email goes into your Facebook messages. What if you don't check that regularly? You didn't know that somebody was emailing you there. So people were like, oh my gosh, I have 20 emails that I should have responded to a long time ago. That's awful. Why didn't you tell me? Well, so here's the thing. With iOS 6, there will be a lot of folks who are syncing their contacts between iOS 6 and Facebook. Of course, now Facebook and Apple have deeper integration than ever. So this is something that people might have done, who already have iPhones, but a good number of people still don't. So what you do if you go, I want to get around this, I don't want this to be a problem for me, is in your contact information. So I've got my contact information here, and what I've done is I'll go reverse. Ooh, enter my password. So don't look at that while I do this to continue. I think this is right. I change my Facebook password like once a week, so I frequently lock myself out. Okay, so here's the deal. I've got my emails here, sarah@sarahlane.com, and I've got SarahLane at Facebook.com. What's the deal? If you hover over onto this area, I have the option to make my sarah@sarahlane.com email public. I'm fine with that. That's a public email address. My SarahLane at Facebook.com email, I don't want to get rid of it entirely, but I'll just say, I don't know, just keep it to friends, because friends are who I'm conversing with on Facebook anyway. Also, though, one step further is by default, your personal email address may say hidden from timeline. What I've done is I've changed that to say show on timeline. I've changed my Facebook email to say hidden from timeline. So it still exists. I've not gotten rid of this email address. It's just not anything anyone sees, and it's not something that iOS 6 will pull, because it's only pulling the data from your wall, not sort of stuff that's hidden. Hopefully that makes sense. It's worth it to know if you've had any problems with this in the past, or you might have potential problems, that this is stuff that you can toggle on and off to make it, customizable for you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So this is also kind of cool if you are a fan of Ricky Gervais, and I know a lot of people are. He's absolutely hilarious. I follow him on Twitter. I love his tweets. He is also the creative mind behind a new app. I don't know how much how much involvement he has as far as the creation of the app, but he has worked with a California company to launch an app that is in beta right now. It's available to the public, and this app is called Just Saying. The idea being it allows you to post voice updates to Twitter and Facebook. People can reply within the app, so you can have a voice conversation instead of just having a text-based conversation. Ricky Gervais has been really talking a lot about this particular app across his Twitter feed. It's now an iOS app. He did mention, I think yesterday, that it will be available on Android in the next couple of months. But neat to see the celebrity endorsement of an app like this. And I'm seeing more and more of this in the app space, where celebrities are getting behind an app that's relevant to something that they do. For Ricky Gervais, obviously being a comedian and depending on his mouth to talk and make a living, this makes some sense for him, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of the next phase of advertising, right? Ricky Gervais has his fans. There's some folks in chat saying, Ricky Gervais, whatever. I mean, you like him or you don't. I happen to be a big fan. I think he's really, really funny. I've loved him since the original Office. But yeah, it's kind of like, if there's an app that makes sense with someone's personal brand, or you're a beautiful celebrity and you want to do a shampoo commercial and, everybody wins kind of thing, it's all sort of the same, I guess. I sometimes think with celebrities particularly, especially a celebrity that's not known to be, technical necessarily, this only goes so far. Ricky Gervais obviously has a huge reach, let's say on Twitter. I don't know how many followers he has, but I'm sure it's a couple of million, if not
3 million. Over 3 million, I think.
3 million. Yeah. Okay, so he's got a big reach, but we've talked about in the past, what's really your reach? Of those 3 million people, probably a solid half of them aren't really reading what you're saying online on a regular basis. They're just following you in, their bot accounts or whatever. So that, there's probably going to be an initial push for any app having a celebrity endorsing it or being a partner. But it still has to be a really good app for people to use it regularly. We all know that there are all sorts of apps that seem really great, and there can be nothing wrong with an app at all, and you just have to feel compelled to go back to it all the time, put it on your home screen, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think it seems like a pretty good partnership, of course.
I think it kind of makes sense for celebrities to use an app like this, in the sense that I think that their fans would recognize value in hearing their celebrity voice, the people who they admire, and having that interaction back and forth with that person. I just wonder, I don't think it's going to be like Twitter, where I think all of a sudden we just have kind of random conversations through voice just because we can use voice. I've been a little skeptical of just the idea of voice updates for a while, and we talked about this a lot in the show, as well as video updates. It just doesn't seem as easy and as seamless as writing text, because you can do text from anywhere. But I do see with the celebrity relationship that maybe that makes a little more sense. If you knew you could talk to your favorite celebrity, in some ways engage in this conversation, you might be interested. But how many celebrities are going to keep it up and keep using it? It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's another point. Is like there's sort of the novelty of, this is so cool. I don't want to do this anymore.
Then it wears off.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to some of our viewer feedback. Are we there yet? Yeah, we absolutely are. So we got a video from Richard, who had a kind of a question about social options for real-world groups.
Hi, Amber and Sarah. My name's Richard. I live in Cardiff in Wales. Love the social hour, and I wondered if you could help me with the question. I'm part of a group called Geek Speak Cardiff, for people who work in non-profit organisations. We get together every month and share tips and so on, and we're looking for online tools we can use to actually manage the group. We need things to help tell people what we're doing, facilitate discussions, share links and ideas we've had and experiences. We've not had much luck with Google Groups, so we're looking for alternatives. perhaps Tumblr, perhaps MailChimp, something like that. Any ideas would be really great. Keep up the good work with the show.
Well, thank you so much for the video question, Richard. And I mean, my first reaction is, have you used Facebook groups? Because I'm in quite a few Facebook groups, and I feel like they work pretty well for everything that Richard is talking about. Not only updates, but video and photos and links and that sort of thing. But he mentioned Google Groups, so maybe he's trying to stay away from Facebook. What do you think, Amber?
Well, I don't know. My initial reaction is also maybe to try out LinkedIn groups. I've actually had a lot of successful conversations within LinkedIn groups. I see a lot of great stuff being done there. I feel like the functionality is actually fairly advanced to be able to share information in those groups and really create a sense of community. I think even more so than Facebook. I know not everybody is on LinkedIn, so that may be a bit of a barrier to getting people signed up for it. But I know that you can do a really good job of that there. So I think that's one pretty viable option. I'm sure there are also other services out there that you can use to do similar things like this. But it's nice to use one of the big social networks because you know at least a small percentage or maybe a larger percentage of the people that you want to join this will probably be part of it or familiar and feel comfortable in those networks.
Yeah, I mean, he is part of, this is a geek group, right? Or a tech group, the tech part of group, Geeky Tech. I forget the actual name of it. But so these are folks that are probably well aware of these services. And I know some people say, you know, we have somebody in chat saying, Facebook private groups, I don't trust them. You know, they'll be public somehow. And I don't think Facebook's, they're not really in the business of outing you. They just want to know more about you. But there are reasons, you know, that somebody might not want to use one of the big services just because they'd like to, I don't know, maybe support a smaller guy or be more creative, that kind of thing. But that is something to think about. I agree with you, Amber, that sometimes you get used to a particular tool and you really like it, and it goes away because the company goes out of business, or maybe it gets bought by a larger company and shut down or changed. So not to say that you shouldn't branch out, but sometimes the bigger companies are just a safer bet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. If you tend to use, you know, something that is kind of new and that's smaller, people do tend to drop off a little bit more. So I would suggest trying LinkedIn groups. It may not seem that attractive right away. I just looked on their site. If you go to learn.linkedin.com/groups, they have all these tips for creating and managing a group and allowing you to have discussions. And I've seen this work really well. So that might be one good option. And if anyone who is listening or watching has a suggestion, let us know. You can tweet us, either Sarah or me, and we will try to include it in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget about the mobile options as well. You probably want something that works across other platforms, or a variety of them anyway. But, you know, something like GroupMe has worked really well for. I'm still on a bunch of GroupMe groups. There's a vacation that me and about 10 other people took to Las Vegas last year, and so we made a GroupMe group so everybody could kind of keep track of each other over the weekend. And we're still in this group. It's actually really great because we're all friends, but it's just a particular group of friends who now have our, you know, little conversations and jokes and stuff, and we share pictures, and it's mostly just updates via GroupMe. But again, there are all sorts of messaging services too, where you can have a variety of people who are either sharing to the group conversation, you know, via text or data or whatever. So, Richard, hopefully that helped at least get some of your other options out on the table. And do let us know if your group finds something that's perfect, what you chose, so that we can pass it on to everybody else. All right, we did get a tweet. We got a bunch of tweets this week, but we got a tweet from John King, a.k.a. _JW King on Twitter. And this is sort of in response to a couple weeks ago, Amber, I think we talked about the Are You Better Off Mitt Romney hashtag campaign on Twitter that went a little awry when folks who are not fans of Mitt Romney got wind of it and kind of hijacked the whole idea. The Romney campaign, of course, there are messages in U.S. politics, of course, for anybody who's not familiar with what I'm talking about. The Romney campaign, one of their big messages is, we're not better off than we were 4 years ago when Barack Obama came into office. We're worse. So the Are You Better Off, is the answer from the Romney side is no, and here's why. Of course, the people who are on the other side used that to kind of, I don't know, go off message, I guess, a little bit. And of course, with hashtags, you have no control over who's using your hashtag. Anybody can use any hashtag. So sometimes things that seem very well-meaning end up getting a little out of control, especially from the social media manager's side of things.
Oh, yeah. It looks like this is no exception either with the link to the article that he sent us. I think this looks like a high-end grocery chain in the UK called Waitrose. And they went on Twitter and they put out this message, finish the sentence, I shop at Waitrose because, and there was a blank space, hashtag Waitrose reasons. Now, this reminds me a lot of the McDonald's campaign where they're trying to get people to talk about, I think, why they ate at McDonald's and McDonald's stories, I think was the hashtag. Looks like this campaign also backfired for this grocery store. Some of the tweets in this article on dailymail.co.uk, including one that says, I shop at Waitrose because it makes me feel important and I absolutely detest being surrounded by poor people. Hashtag Waitrose reasons. And the list of things goes on and on as far as the negative feedback, and definitely an example of a hashtag and a social media outreach that has gone pretty wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the PR team or certainly someone from Waitrose had responded. You know, somebody had reached out to them and they said, okay, I get it. It's funny. You know, we understand that we're catering to more of a high-end customer and not everybody can afford to shop there. So, of course, people are going to have, you know, their little eye-rolling jokes. It's like how I call Whole Foods whole paycheck, right? Because it's expensive. It's just, it's not the cheapest grocery store option that I have. And I didn't make that up, by the way. Somebody else said that once and I laughed and now I use it. But yeah, so I kind of like how this is a little bit more of a lighthearted version of hashtag hijacking, but it is something that I think brands really need to think about. You know, if there's a possibility at all that your kind of marketing campaign and something that you want to spread virally is going to turn on you, you really want to make sure that it's not going to be too negative against you. I mean, this company, I mean, what are their options? Lower prices? Yeah, they're probably not going to do that. You know, their image isn't really, you know, it's not as if this is really bad publicity for them, but it's also not really the campaign that they intended either. You know, the community tends to sort of morph and spin out of control sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, eventually people are going to have to learn from some of these hashtags, especially if there's any reason that someone might be critical of your company, that you have to be a little careful when you ask people to share stories about the company or get them to fill in blanks. That can be a little bit scary to you. I don't know if I would go that route, but thank you so much to John for sharing this. It's nice to see these things continue.
All right, so quick reminder, we already gave you the email address, but I'll give it to you once again. The social hour at twit.tv is our email address. I give out so many email addresses for different shows that I'm like, what is it? It's the most obvious email address you could think of, but hey, you know, end of the week, long week. You can also leave us a voicemail, though. We love to hear your voices and see your videos, of course. In fact, videos are kind of the coolest because now I know what Richard looks like, and I'm going to high-five him next time I'm in Cardiff. But you can leave us a voicemail at 2626-SOCIAL. That's just a Google Voice mailbox, so you don't have to worry about Amber and I picking up the phone and scaring you half to death. Just leave us a voicemail and tell us everything social, a question or a comment or a funny story or an anecdote or really anything. Try to keep it to 30 seconds or less. Makes it easy for us to insert it into the show. Again, that's 2626-SOCIAL. Hey, Amber, before we get to Rad or Fad, I thought that we might take a second to just let people know, if they weren't already aware, that we have these limited TWiT shirts that are for sale right now through Teespring. Teespring is this really cool T-shirt maker, and we've put together these T-shirts that are really beautiful. They've got the big TWiT logo on the back with all of the shows written in really, really fine print in the size and the shape of our logo. Obviously, anybody who's watching the video stream right now is looking at it. That's the back of the T-shirt, by the way, so it's not this huge thing. It's, you know, kind of this cool thing on your back. And we're selling them for $20. We actually thought that we were just going to sell like, I don't know, 100 or something, and we've sold quite a few more than that. It's during this campaign. We had a minimum of 100 T-shirts so that, you know, we could like break even type of a thing, and we've sold, gosh, I mean, we're at 750 now, and you have 21 days left. So if you like this, if you're into it, if this seems something that you would want, we're just offering it for a limited time, because it'll be kind of like, if people really want this T-shirt, then you could be part of this campaign, and you kind of have something that not everybody has access to. And they're beautiful. You can either get them in the American Apparel fabric or Fruit of the Loom. I happen to be partial to American Apparel because their smalls fit me really well and they're nice and soft. But some folks like Fruit of the Loom T-shirts, so you kind of know what you're getting anyway. Again, that's at teespring.com/twit. Really cool T-shirts. We all ordered them in the office, so I think that you can. I already wear a lot of our own uniforms here at TWiT, which is great because I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear, and also I just kind of look like I'm on message. But as soon as we get our new T-shirts, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of us around the office wearing these as well. All right, just thought I'd remind you guys, you know, gift for somebody, you know, the geek in your life.
Those are great.
Like that. Yeah, they're pretty cool. We'll send you one too, Amber. All right, so it's time for Rad or Fad.
Yes. So we kind of pulled this out of our headlines this week because I wanted to put it into Rad or Fad because I'm just curious what people think about it. Obviously, big news a few days ago when Twitter had redesigned its header, the ability for people to add an image to their profile page and just basically create almost like a custom look. Looks a little bit similar, I would say, to Facebook and their cover photo that they allowed you to add to your Facebook account. I went on and I had changed mine and just kind of threw in a couple of images. I don't know, you know, in terms of Rad or Fad, totally how I feel about this, but my gut is that I don't necessarily love it. And I think one of the reasons is I find the text really hard to read. I mean, unless you have your header image professionally designed, I do think that it makes it a little more difficult to read your bio, the information about where you work and all of those key things that you want to promote and get out there. What do you think, Sarah?
I agree with you. You know, it's funny. If you pull up my computer, Alex, my profile, I was like, oh, cool, a cover photo. Yeah, okay, everybody's doing this now. It's like what I have on Facebook, right? And so I uploaded a picture of an It's It ice cream sandwich, which is the best thing in the world, by the way. But there's a lot of words on this label, and I didn't really think about it. And now I'm not going to change it just because, I don't know, I want to promote ice cream. But my bio is a little bit hard to read. I definitely could have picked something that was a little bit better or maybe was sized appropriately so that the TWiT logo was in the upper left-hand corner and it wasn't in the way of anything. This is Twitter. Twitter just keeps changing everything on us, right? I mean, I guess it's cool. Yeah, sure, it's nice to have a cover photo. Some people are going to have really beautifully displayed cover photos. Some people aren't even going to add one. I don't like, this is funny, Nicole Lee, who's, well, she doesn't actually technically work at TWiT anymore, but she was the producer of Before You Buy for the last year. She and I both were like, why is it center aligned? I know that's nitpicky and some people just do not care about that, but why is the biotech center aligned? I'm talking about this text right here. It just kind of bugs me. Everything else on the whole page is left aligned.
I agree with you, totally.
Yeah, like it just seems like they're trying to be visual and photo happy. For what reason exactly?
I know, and I think really honestly the way it looked before was much easier. I'm just going to Leo's profile. It looks like he hasn't uploaded his image yet, but it's just so simple to read. You know, you have the name and nice big text at the top, really rich text, easy to see, and then all of the information below just on a nice, neat white black background. My advice is if you are going to change it, you want to try to use something that doesn't have a lot of too much of a design to it, too much text on it, because you really won't be able to see your bio information. So it's not easy. I tried to I pulled an Instagram photo to do mine, and I kind of stretched it a lot. So I had just lots of grays as the background image to my profile header, and that helped a little bit in terms of being able to have some clarity with the text, but it's not a perfect solution. I think so. I say it's maybe faddish.
Yeah, I think Twitter is... They're clearly, you know, they're cutting off access to third parties, and they're making a lot of API changes, and we've talked a lot about this recently. Twitter's going through their growing pains. They're trying to be a viable company that makes a lot of money and employs a lot of people. And I look at this a little bit as Twitter doesn't want to just be one of the places that you have a presence online, right? They want to be the place that you hang out. And so if you've got a profile page where you've got a bio and you've got, it's very visual and you have photos that represent you, there's a photo of your face or whatever you want to be your actual profile picture, but then you've got a cover photo as well. And people are used to this because that's what they do on Facebook, and there are other services. Path is another one that has, a profile picture and a cover photo that kind of represents you, and you can change it regularly. That feels more like something like a flavors.me landing page a little bit. You've got your information there and then all of your correspondence with everybody on Twitter. I don't feel like I go to people's profile pages that often. I just don't. But it's certainly, it's something that you hit every once in a while. Sometimes I'll be curious, hey, I wonder what, how many followers does Ricky Gervais have, for example? And I go to his profile page and I get all that information, and then I see how his page is customized. But it's just, this is the direction that Twitter's going in, and I don't think it's perfect. But yeah, it definitely depends on what images you choose. So in a sense, I don't want to say that it's a fad because it's probably here to stay. But then again, nothing on Twitter is really here to stay. They keep changing everything. So maybe it is a fad.
I know. It's funny. The only person whose page I kind of like is actually, and I think he was one of the first people to roll out with one of these pages or one of these headers, is Ryan Seacrest. Obviously, he had someone kind of design the page for him. But what's neat about it is he actually has his headshot, or he has this nice big image and then sort of this white line around his headshot. So it kind of pulls him out from the image. So you see him and then all of his text below. And I think it's a decent way to treat that page, but not everybody necessarily has the resources to do something like that. Overall, again, I'm with you on the text, and I think it should be justified to the left. Yeah, probably not a fad, but definitely not rad.
Yeah, definitely not rad. I'm with you. What is it about how some people are just sort of obsessive about text and fonts? I think you and I are probably in that camp, and then other people would be like, what do you mean? Oh, that? Never noticed. I was talking to Tom Merritt about this the other day, where he was like, I don't know, that just nothing about that bothers me. And I'm like, how can you not see it blinking at you when you look at the page? It's so weird. Why is it like that? But, to each their own. All right, well, we've come to the end of our wonderfully social hour this week. It's been fun as always. Episode 78 was a winner. Remember that we are live on Fridays, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be taping over the next couple of weeks a couple shows the day before in advance. So we'll let you know on the TWiT schedule. That will be updated. So if you like to watch live, going to have a couple kind of funny weeks, then we'll be back to normal. Amber has graciously been able to work around my sort of weird schedule over the next couple of weeks. But don't worry about that. We'll keep you guys updated, and we'll obviously send out tweets when we do go live. But our usual times, again, that's 4 p.m. Pacific, or 4 p.m. Eastern, rather, on Friday. Gosh, this week. And you can find us on demand, twit.tv/TSH. You can find us on iTunes. We're easy to find. Amber and I spend all of our lives online, so please do get to us with feedback and questions and comments, and be part of the show, because it is social after all. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.